Welcome back, everybody, to the FC Monmouth Podcast alongside the great Lucas Francis and head coach Hugh MacDonald of the men's team. I'm Chris Dailey. So honored to be speaking to you guys yet again. It's going to be a great show and super excited to be speaking to Hugh after, of course, playing for Hugh for a couple years. But it's just such a brand new era for this men's program. And Hugh, we're really honored to be talking to you today.
Oh, happy to be on with you guys. And it's funny because I want to mention that there is a history before even FC Monmouth with both of you guys. And I've had Lucas Francis at, youth camp at Monmouth, and I've been friendly with his dad throughout the years. And Chris Dailey played for my club team. So it's a really fun, circling back moment for all of us here. It's pretty cool.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's very cool. Lucas, I got to say, I like the jacket, Asbury Park FC. I was sad to hear the other day about the news. It actually caught me right in my tracks.
What's the news?
As of 2 weeks ago, Asbury Park Football Club no longer exists.
No.
Yeah.
What happened?
I honestly don't. But it's not gone. There's gonna be more stuff coming. It's just good. Under APFC is gone, but there's gonna be more stuff coming.
All right, good to know.
Well, we got to get that out of the way before we get into the nitty-gritty of FC Monmouth. About the second biggest club in Monmouth County, Asbury Park FC. So good to cover that. Now we're going to step it up a tier to FC Monmouth. But Hugh, before we even do that, I would love to ask you, you're from Soccer Town, USA. And we've talked about this before, both, off camera and then for some written interviews. But can you just talk about your upbringings in Kearney, New Jersey, a place that just breeds soccer talent, you being one of the best?
I wouldn't want to call myself one of the best. There's a lot.
We'll give it to you.
A lot of really, honestly, there's so many good players that came through that town. So, as far as upbringing is concerned, I played a few sports growing up back when that was a thing, and it's really not anymore, which is sad. But as far as it relates to my town and what my career path or my path in life would have been, there really wasn't much choice. We're all come from immigrant families, and we all were mad about the sport, whether it was grandparents, first, second generation, didn't matter. We were all just really, really into football, soccer first. The other sports were there to play for sure, but the whole entire, culture around the town is based upon it's based around soccer, and it has been, for a long time, and it still is now. So it's a big. It's a big feeling of pride to be from there, and you don't know how lucky you are to be from the town you're from until maybe you're closer to my age and you actually reflect on this type of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I watched that documentary, Soccer Town USA, about John Harkes, Tab Ramos, just all these guys. It's so surreal. And then, of course, you with everything with the Red Bulls and Monmouth, and now FC Monmouth. There's just so many people, and we could cut it to Wall Township, Nicky Bones, some good players from Wall Township as well, from Kearney, New Jersey. But
we just had this debate the other day, Chris.
Yeah, we did. We had a debate about.
First of all, there's not a debate, but go ahead, tell me what you were debating.
We had a debate about the best town for soccer in Monmouth County, and Lucas was making a point for Ocean, and I mean, Wall just clears. If you go back to Tom Bogert in 2011, 2012, you go back. The head coach at Virginia, can't say his name, but, I mean, he's a Wall Township guy. You go back to Tommy Kane.
Why can't we say his name?
George Jelinovich or Gelinovich.
Yeah, very famous Wall guy. Yes,
yeah. So, a lot of guys. And, we have an Olympian. We have a Mac Herman, trophy winner in Tom Kane back in the 70s and 80s. If you want to look at the history, and we're looking at everything, Lucas, it's not a debate, but
Chris, we're done with the Stone Age, though. That's 30 years ago.
You're talking to two Wall Township citizens, by the way.
I don't have skin in this game because I didn't grow up around here, but I will say my kids are being raised in Wall, so I'm a little partial. But with that being said, I don't have enough information to really have an opinion, so you guys can fight away.
Yeah, we will. That's another episode. We'll get into everything. But Hugh, back to you for your recruiting process. And you talk about you play different sports. Was it always soccer, kind of taking it to the next level rather than basketball and everything else you were playing? And then from there, what made you land on VCU initially?
So I had always had the plan to play soccer as long as I possibly could. I didn't know at the time growing up what that would be. I mean, when you're young, you're probably confident, borderline cocky. I believed I was going to be a professional player in my heart and soul. So I assumed I would, at that point, the college path was the most important path. And I assumed I'd play college soccer growing up. I got recruited to VCU because Rob, one of my best friends and boss at Monmouth, was the assistant coach at VCU. So I got recruited down there actually to play through Rob because he was actually the freshman coach of my high school soccer team. I was only on the freshman team as a freshman. He was the freshman coach helping out while he was coaching a USL team at the time. So that connection created there. I ended up at VCU as a student athlete a long time ago. But as far as there being decisions, there never really was. I had a chance to play baseball in college, probably a better chance, to afford college playing baseball rather than soccer. But my heart was with the sport of soccer. It always has been, and it wasn't really a decision for me.
So in hindsight, you call your decision to come transfer to Monmouth like one of the best decisions you've ever made, from like the game against Virginia, and then of course meeting your wife at the school.
It's a good question. I mean, maybe not athletically at the time would it have been, considered one of the best decisions I ever made. But now that I'm, closer to, it ended up being after, at Monmouth, we started to kick on and do pretty well. But it was a bit of a risk because VCU at the time, who cares, but we were, top 10 in the country, lost in the Elite Eight the year before, went to the Sweet 16 when I was a freshman. So I left that to go to Monmouth because my sister just had a baby. I'm from New Jersey. Rob got the head coaching job. It made a lot of sense. And now, as we've gotten older and, I've raised, I'm beginning to raise a family in Monmouth County. I met my wife there. It's probably, considering where I'm at in my life now, it has to be the best decision I've ever made.
So then out of Monmouth, you have the brief stint with the Red Bulls. What was it like signing? You had always dreamed about signing a pro contract, and what was that like once you finally signed that contract for such a historic team with Clint Mathis playing, John Walnick, a young Josie Altidore?
You know your history, huh?
Of course, Juan Pablo Angel.
You weren't even born back then.
All the legends.
Yeah, that was pretty surreal, especially moving back to North Jersey from being at Monmouth University in college. And, at the time we were at Giant Stadium. So I was able to stay with my parents, move back home, and play for the local MLS team. It was an adrenaline rush for sure. I wasn't quite good enough to play in the first team. I mean, I was obviously on contract with the first team, but I watched a lot of games from the suites. But my good friends were playing in really big environments, and you learn a lot about what it really truly takes. I mean, you talk to a lot of young guys that want to play even college soccer or hopefully beyond, and when you get to that level, the differences can be small as far as who's good enough to make it or who doesn't, but the big difference maker is every single guy from 1 through 28 that were on that roster was mad about their football, was big about their nutrition, was really, really thinking about their sleep, but didn't ever take even, a single, rondo, a passing pattern, a training drill. Everything was to the max capacity and with full professionalism. So, it was a really cool experience, and there were some really, really special players that are now still involved with the game, whether, their careers are done playing. There's a lot of general managers and coaches and stuff. So I was lucky to be part of that group in 2007. Yeah.
And you came in MLS, with the Red Bulls as such a pivotal time for the team and the league. I'm pretty sure the beginning of sort of the Beckham experiment, transitioning from, I want to say the Stone Age of MLS to how it is modern.
Be careful, Lucas. Be careful, man. It was at the club at the time, because I know you guys are I'm Lucas. I know you're really involved with the club. The club at the time was in a really, really positive moment as far as Red Bull taking over, Anschutz, taking us to different places in preseason. It felt like at the time, and I didn't know much then, that Red Bull were operating at a real professional level, where some of the MLS teams were still trying, to fight to really kind of support their players in preseason. it actually got knocked down because of a collective bargaining agreement issue. But in preseason, we were taking private flights from Teterboro when, at that point in the league, it wasn't really allowed. So like they really were injecting some cash at the time and trying to, get it going here in New York. So it was a really cool time. It was a really cool time to be, in and around the club. I just wish I was better, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just surreal, to even be there, Hugh. So I wouldn't say that, don't sell yourself short by any means. But, yeah, just a great story right there. And then from that point, right, you spend a season or two there. Why and how did you get into coaching at Monmouth? How was your relationship with Robin? Just curious, like, why did you not, I guess, go through the matrix, right, and get that desk job, but rather coach? Because I feel like coaching is very much who you are. So what led you to realizing that?
So I come from a family of teachers first and foremost. But that, that has to be part of it. But in reality, my obsession was to be a pro for a minimum of 10 years and then either be a color analyst or a coach. I didn't know which way I would go with it. I just wanted to be around the sport. I knew that a desk job wouldn't be me. It's just not who I am. So when I got released by Red Bull, I still had college credits to finish at Monmouth, and I was traveling down at night, even when I was a part of the team at Red Bull and taking night classes and just trying to chip away at the schooling part, because I promised my mom I obviously would finish college. So, the job became open at Monmouth as I was sort of transitioning back to school and trying to figure out how to finish the class up. So I probably was almost at the time maybe like forced into coaching way sooner than I would have wanted to be. But now when I think back, I was given a jump start on trying to maybe figure out who I am and what the best, type of coach and assistant coach I could be from those really young years. So I've started, coaching, 3 and 4 year olds, Buzz B, funny games that my buddy Schmitty used to be hooked up with. So I've gone from like as grassroots. It's funny enough, my first coaching probably was Sickle Park, where the guys that, own FC Monmouth created this entire idea from. So it's really funny. Or I shouldn't say funny. It's been a long, coaching journey that started with, the youngest and the most genuine, and has, continued to flourish from there. So it's been a trip.
Yeah, and I'm curious for you, especially as a coach myself, and both Lucas and I have worked at your camps, and then I do a lot of personal soccer training on the side with these kids who are 6, 7 years old, don't know much about the game. I'm teaching them how to pass the ball, right? Do you apply any of the lessons you learn? Not necessarily, of course, like tactical by any means, but maybe more like an ethos to it, right? To this higher level that you now coach at, or is it just totally night and day?
It's a good question. I think the most important part is that sometimes these teams and these groups need to realize that we do this because we actually love it. Like you can work so hard and want to win so bad, and your environment is so sort of high pressure in a sense that like there's a lot of moments throughout, college season or this summer team season where you need to realize when things get difficult and when maybe things don't always go your way, that at the end of the day, we're doing this because we love and enjoy and get joy out of playing this sport. So to take anything from the grassroots, it would be that we're all still kids and just love to be part of this sport. And we can't forget that part.
Yeah.
So FC Monmouth, we've been trying to win silverware for years. You've fallen short a couple times. New league, new era with you as the coach. What factored into your decision to come coach FC Monmouth?
So Jaco and I have been, pretty decent acquaintances through the sport over the years. So I've been on a bunch of phone calls from probably the beginning of FC Monmouth, kind of like from the outside looking in, just maybe a phone call away just to shoot some stuff back and forth, some ideas. And then like, as I was talking earlier with you guys about coaching Chris, I had coached in the Wall Soccer Club in the youth sector for a long period of time, since the time I graduated Monmouth until, about 2 years ago when my 2005's Chris's team just, graduated and went into college. So no disrespect to the youth world of sports. I was ready to maybe dig more into my family and move a little bit away from the youth sports culture, because it's really hard. Like my wife's here raising 3 young kids while I'm at Tuckahoe Turf Farms 17 times a year. Like I don't mean like that's not tough, but like I've spent, my first few Father's Days, which is this is the life I chose. You're spending Father's Days and you're away from the family and you're like, oh my God, it's my Father's Day. And all these dads are here with their kids playing sports and I'm waiting to get home. So it became a point where I just wanted to be more like present with the kids. And then this opportunity at FC Monmouth popped up with Yako, speaking to him originally, and Mattia. Obviously James had a lot to do with this too. It just started to make a lot more sense the more I spoke to these guys. I wanted to make sure that I was getting into an environment where like I had like-minded, good human beings, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what this is about. And the more I thought about it, and the more I realized like this could be a real fun thing to do in the summers, and I can help some guys hopefully individually get, maybe not better, but maintain some stuff in the off season and get a collective, buy into a summer league team, which can be quite hard to do. It became more clear that this is something I really wanted to pursue.
So, what's your approach compared to recruiting for a D1 level program? What's your approach sort of recruiting for a summer league team?
Well, first and foremost, it needs to be, it needs to make sense as far as, where kids are from. They're coming home from college. So like we need them to be within an hour's drive in order to be able to make training sessions. We live at the Jersey Shore. You can't afford, a closet right now. And as far as, summer teams are concerned. So the kids mostly need to be coming home for the summer and be given an opportunity to be in hopefully a high performing environment. So first and foremost, we're scanning rosters. There's no one better than James. We're scanning rosters and figuring out what would make sense, who's where, at what university or college, and can we offer them something here when they come home from the summer. So that's the first part. You have to make sure the kids are local. And then the second part is we all, as coaches, build out a lot of what we want to do, and we all have player profiles that'll fit our game idea, and we all want to be sort of bullish about the profiles we want in each of the positions. But at the end of the day, you have to be a little bit more open to maybe slight nuances, because not every kid that's regional or local, I should say, is going to fit precisely to your player profile. So you have to just be a little bit more open to shifting and flowing and maybe changing a thing here or there. But the overall idea of how we're going to play won't ever really change much drastically, but you'll just make tweaks here and there. But yeah, as far as recruiting is concerned, it's really about, can we get Monmouth County kids to really understand what we're trying to do here and use this as hopefully a Kickstarter for them to go back to their schools.
Awesome, Hugh. And one thing I love that you talked about, right, is being this family man. And if there's anything that I think it really embodies FC Monmouth, it's this idea of being a community club. And we've had other clubs and even New Logical Sports who do our live streams, right? And this guy, he's always in my ear when we're doing my announcing. His name is Patrick Murphy. He just put up a post about how great FC Monmouth is to work with, because there's so many fans coming to the game. There's so many youth soccer teams coming to the game to watch.
Yeah.
How do you aim to help the club in that aspect as well? Because I know on the pitch, we all know, Hugh MacDonald, you've done phenomenal work at Monmouth, but what are you going to do in the community and with your family as well, to really help FC Monmouth grow?
That's a good question. To be fair to the guys that created this, they've done such a really good job away from the field and creating an environment and having an atmosphere that everyone really wants to be a part of. And James works his tail off, and Yako is a pretty big visionary, and Mattia and a couple other guys do a real good job of helping this entire process out. But at times the football hasn't always been the greatest. It's been really good in the past. They've won in the past for sure, but maybe it's my job here to try to make sure that the football can compete with what they're doing off, the field, because the stuff that FC Monmouth does to support these guys coming home and the things that these young guys are offered, the sponsorship deals, the kit deals with Hummel and all sorts of, different ways to make the game day environments as good as they possibly can. It deserves something athletically too. And it's my job to make sure that I'm meeting the standards that FC Monmouth's already put in place. And then to add to that, you guys, everyone else involved with the club, just because I already know these people, none of us want to be part of something that, it isn't special from a human connection standpoint. So I'm excited to involve my family and one of my close friends, Evan Unger, on staff, and Laurent from Monmouth to help with the goalkeepers. I'm excited to continue to, build on something that FC Monmouth's done a really good job of creating, which is a real family atmosphere. It's why you guys do this. It's why I'm here. So.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of Evan, I think he will be joining the show in just about 30 seconds. So we're going to take a quick break on the FC Monmouth podcast. We will be back to you after a short message from our general manager, James Davis. How's it going, everybody? Chris Dailey from the FC Monmouth podcast. Kind of just pivoted right there. Didn't know how to break up this interview, but I lied. James, I'm sure he has stuff to say, but make sure to follow us on social media, where he is the guy posting and keeping you up to date with all, everything FC Monmouth at We Are Monmouth on social medias, fcmonmouth.com as well. Check it out. It's going to be a big season ahead in the league for clubs and the WPSL. So much good content being put up on there by James. He works a lot behind the scenes, so we really appreciate all the work he does. But I don't want to add anything else to his plate. So now, enjoy the rest of the interview. Thanks for watching, guys. We really appreciate it if you made it this far. Welcome back, everybody, to the FC Monmouth show. We now have Coach Evan as well on the Google Meet. So, Evan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Evan, so you worked with Hugh in the past, and we want to talk to you now. We've been talking about Hugh and his journey, but from somebody firsthand who's worked with the boss now, what can you tell us about Coach Hugh and what he is like to work with?
I would say one of the best leaders I've ever met in my life. When I was at college, I was 18. Hugh would probably tell you I was probably the smallest kid on the team, probably maybe the most naive kid on the team at the time. And these are things Huey won't remember, because he was the captain. He was the best player. He was the center back. He would pull me aside in preseason, help me out. I always remember sophomore year, and it sounds cliche, but 1 through 26, that's what matters. And as a player, you don't really realize, when you're on the bench, how much that matters to the team and your energy and what you put into it. And before every game, the message from the captain, Huey, was always 1 through 26, we're all in this together. And then as you become a coach, you start to realize how much player 23, 24, 25, 26 really matters. And you never know it as a kid. Then every time you go watch a championship team, and obviously it's always easier for teams that win than lose, but you watch the culture on their bench, and it's always the guys that are super into it and the guys that never play who are the most vocal on the bench and the most into it. And that was always his mindset. And if you look at his mindset, it's just always been a leader and taking care of everyone on the team.
Awesome. I actually interviewed a lot of the Monmouth bench mob from the basketball team. So you want to speak about crazy benches? I had a chance to meet all those guys this summer. They're playing like pro-am basketball now in Manasquan. So it was cool to meet those guys. And it goes to show, Monmouth, they have those lively benches. But without further ado, now about yourself, right? So you're a player at Monmouth, then you become a coach. What was it like working at Monmouth and then transitioning into your role with EDP, of course?
Yeah, Monmouth helped me with a lot of things in life, obviously as a player, then as a coach. And Huey and Coach Rob McCourt helped me network with other coaches all around the region, around the country, including me in everything they did in all facets of the program. When we make NCAA tournament runs, being on all the phone calls, learning how everything works. And then able to take that into the administrative world and bring to EDP sort of what it all looks like from a Division I college perspective, what colleges are looking for, what players looking to go play in college are looking for, and sort of bring that all together and help EDP sort of shape what we do in the showcase space.
Awesome.
So a little fun question here, but you both are pretty high up in your in the soccer world, I would say, who's the most famous person in your contacts, soccer related? And like, just talk about like your first time working with someone high level, what that was kind of like for you.
Evan probably has cooler ones than me because of the world he lives in right now. But if you would look back at that Red Bull team that I was on, you could probably get your answers there for me as far as soccer guys are concerned.
I
Shows you
take
out the door.
the person right now I'd say I speak to the most up. That's probably the most famous is Luis Robles, who's now the technical director of MLS Next. So he's probably my number one of consistently speaking to well-known people in the soccer world.
Iron Man.
And he never sleeps, so he lives up to it.
Yeah.
Now, have you guys ever gotten starstruck by anyone, though?
You know, it's funny if you ask that one. When I was a kid, obviously growing up in Kearney, my favorite player at the time was Sean Harks. I had all the posters. I wrote all the book reports. And then eventually, you know, he was the assistant at Red Bull when I was up there at the time and has become a close friend of, you know, my wife and I, our kids. So there was maybe like a few month period where I was like, oh, this is Harsey. Like, this is cool. A lot different of a relationship now, but for me, that was a really interesting moment. Like when I tell you I wrote like multiple book reports, like it was pretty much the only thing that I ever would do any school projects on was Harksey because that was my idol.
His son's doing pretty well right now.
Yeah, Ian's doing great, man.
Doing really well.
Yeah.
Evan, what about you?
No, I don't really get starstruck.
Yeah. You know who does? You know who does?
My dad.
You know, you need to know the reason. Evan's dad, Lonnie, ran FC Westchester back when FC Westchester, and they're a great club now, but one of the biggest clubs in the region when I was growing up. And he actually was one of the guys that created the development academy, believe it or not. So Evan's dad is like a true icon in our world. So we always joke because Lonnie now lives in Florida and he's part of a tennis club. Is it a tennis club?
Yeah, tennis golf club.
A tennis golf club, and he's always sending Evan pictures of like these are famous people, don't get me wrong, but like he's the biggest fan of like a C or D list celebrity. It's really, I had to get that in. Sorry.
I mean, you go to all the convention stuff, and over time, like everyone's just a normal guy. Like it's, yeah, no, I don't really get starstruck. It's just they're all just coaches. They're all just soccer players. They're all just administrators. Everyone's. There would be people I would be starstruck. Like if all of a sudden, like I'm in an elevator with Messi. Like I think that'd be a really big deal. But there's not many. I'd be like, wow, this is incredible.
First time I ever sat down in the locker room at Red Bull was in Giant Stadium, and they were going through logistics. And I sit in one of the open chairs, and one of the senior players walks in and sits down, and is next to me, and he introduces himself, and he says, "Hi, I'm Claudio," and I was like, "Yeah, I know who you are, man." But like, I have to pretend like I'm like, "Oh yeah, man, I'm Hugh. Like, nice to meet you." But yeah, that's those moments when you're a young kid. We're old now, though, guys. This is a different.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Evan, I don't think you're going to see Messi anytime soon. He's hibernating right now, so he's not playing in the cold. He'll come out in a couple months, I believe. But now I have a quick question for you, especially now that we know your father was very involved with youth soccer, and then you yourself, you've seen all these trends and these developments in the past 10 years. I mean, you even talk about the DA and everything that happened with MLS Next, and now EDP reaching all these new heights, a partnership with Three Step and Major League Soccer. What do you see and envision for youth soccer and the whole youth soccer scene within the next 5 to 10 years, and where is that next step for it to go to really progress in the United States?
It's tough to predict 5 years out. Sometimes it's tough to predict 6 months out in youth soccer. I'd say the biggest thing coming is the World Cup. So there's numbers, I don't have them, but the 94 World Cup was before social media. The internet had just started, and it was youth soccer participation raised, I think it was like 10% or something like that. So you look at 2026 and the World Cup comes back to America and how much more participation there can be in youth soccer in 2026 to 2030. Then we have the Club World Cup next year, and then the Olympics come soon after that. So it's really, I think participation numbers are going to skyrocket, so it's going to be good for everyone. But where the landscape shifts is tough to predict.
Yeah, and final question about youth soccer before we transition to FC Monmouth. A lot of kids are, of course, joining. And the one question I have personally, because I've always seen that statistic, kids that are 13, 14 are quitting sports at an unprecedented rate, right? They've never been dropping out of sports like this at any time in history. So for you working with an EDP, and I know this may not be your exact role, but how are you guys trying to tackle that, especially within the realm of soccer?
Just trying to make events somewhat player friendly, right? A lot of it is kids have to drive 4 hours to play the team right next to them. So create diverse competition. Kids are getting on planes at 9, 10, 11 years old. So trying to create as many competitive environments within the local market for clubs as possible, offer them as many programs as possible so that kids in New Jersey, New York, New England, Maryland don't have to travel all over the place. I always tell kids, and Huey's an example. Huey played 3 sports in high school. Kids now specialize when they're 9 years old, 10 years old. There's no need to specialize when you're 8, when you're 9, when you're 10, when you're 11. You don't really have to specialize till you're almost through high school. So keep kids enjoying it. Don't make kids play on 4 teams when you're 9 years old because you think you're going to miss something. Just enjoy playing, enjoy the environment. Don't go chase something because you think in 10 years, if I move when I'm 9, you get to play at Notre Dame. Like, just enjoy the environment, find the coach you really like, find the group of kids you really like playing with, and it'll make it all more fun for you.
Yeah. The hard part, guys, is, and I'm going through this with my kids, and it's not to be cynical. It's just there's the parents don't really know. There's not a real big education piece on what the best way to develop youth soccer players are. But the fact is, all the information is out there. Everyone knows that small-sided and open play and free play and pickup is how you actually develop in the sport. But it's just all too easy for parents to just continue to chase, the rainbows and look for the next best, marketing play. And it's not. Listen, it's even hard for me who's has to research this stuff for a living, really. You speak to parents and they're well-intentioned, good human beings. They really, really don't understand that the love of this sport is way more important than the $350 individual training session that they could have had, a better time just finding 6 friends going playing 3v3. They would have gotten better. They would have had more fun, and they would have continued playing. So the youth sport thing is a really difficult one right now, and we're all just trying to make it better for the kids. I think that's, the bottom line, but it's tough in our sport because it's a really difficult task when results aren't always what's best for individual development. Like, results and individual development in our sport don't really go hand in hand, and that's like a really long conversation to have that people aren't willing to listen to. So it is what it is. We'll continue to do our best, and that's all of our jobs. Really, all of us on this podcast. It's our job. We gotta go down and fight to make sure that we're doing what's right for the kids. And the research is there. We know how to develop youth players in soccer. It's just we got to make sure the educational piece is and the transfer of knowledge is better to the parents.
Yeah, so Evan, now you've taken this role at FC Monmouth. How excited are you to get started this year? What do you hope to bring to the table for the club?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be back on the field. I've left the field for a few years for the administrative side, so get to be back and work with all the kids in Monmouth County, that some of them that me and Huey used to have at camp when they were 9, 10 years old, but be able to build something Monmouth County's proud of. I look back, I've now lived here, I think, half my life. So it's home for me now. I want somewhere where my kids can go and enjoy a soccer game, their friends can go enjoy a soccer game, and just create a really good culture of what people in Monmouth can watch in the summer.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited for, I think, this season, especially with the women's team. Like, we have not, really mentioned that. And, of course, because we're all on the men's side right now. But, I mean, it's just such a huge summer for FC Monmouth, especially me. My first ever game was the first season, actually. And I went to one of the first inaugural season games, immediately captivated by it because I always have seen the videos overseas about, 4th to 5th division, the National League South. And Connor Kelly, by the way, former FC Monmouth player, who you guys probably know of, ACC standout, then went into the National League, I believe, and had a lengthy FA Cup run, and we're wishing him the best right now with his injury recovery. But it's just been so amazing to see and be a part of the club. So now for the both of you, I know you guys, you seem to be like the best of friends. So what are the anticipation levels to work with one another again? And how are you guys going to manage this friendship, not clashing with the work as well?
If you don't mind, we are friends. There's no denying that. He's one of my best friends and has been for a long time. But I think what helps is, Evan won't be afraid to say something to me, which is important. I can be pretty dogmatic and stubborn. There's no doubt. I think a lot of coaches are, but Evan has a real calm demeanor and calming approach to the way he sees things and the way he communicates things. It's something I've always worked on. It's just maintaining calmness, because the more chaotic your brain gets, the less you're able to make adjustments. So we'll work really well together, and the reason we will is we're not the same people. We have the same principles, but we're not the same people. So he'll be better in certain areas that I'm not, and I'll be better in certain areas that he's not. So I think it's really important that you put people around you that can offer something different than what you're able to offer yourself. And I think that's why Evan was, my first phone call. Evan, I don't know if you can.
No, I agree with that. I'd say if you come to the games, you'll see Huey's probably the more emotional one on the sideline, and I'm usually pretty calm and sit there and, again, think of things somewhat analytically. So, again, same as, do you get starstruck? Not really. Just sort of even keel. So, the game's the game. We'll watch it. It won't get caught up in emotions. If you have a staff of 4 people screaming at the referees, all of a sudden your players are screaming at the referees, and it just becomes chaos. So, again, sometimes you need 2 different personalities who get along very well and can be honest with each other, but one is calming one down and one's riling the other up, and it becomes a good medium.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, it's kind of a good dynamic that you guys have. Even before we, the 30 seconds before the podcast even started filming again, I could tell that, there is chemistry here. But I know, Lucas, you have one final question before we head into trivia, so fire away.
There's one question for Huey. Evan, you can answer too. Actually, no, it's really more for Hugh, but what's it like transitioning from an assistant coach role at Monmouth to now being the head coach, sort of in charge of this FC Monmouth team?
I mean, the main difference is that you're the bad guy, right? At the end of the day, the decision lies with you. So, you can sugarcoat it all you want, but, the decisions about who's going to play and who's not going to play, they lie on your desk instead of, someone else's. So, I've been coaching a long time, coached as a head coach in the youth market for a long period of time. I'm very comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. It's probably part of the reason my family can't stand me sometimes. But, if you're going to be a coach, you have to be willing to make difficult decisions and then sit there and take on the consequences, knowing that at the end of the day, it's going to be you that can sometimes be the bad guy or the scapegoat. But listen, it's football. We love this sport. We're just going to try to be good to each other and work to the best of our ability to put a product out there that people are proud of. And the other stuff will work itself out. As long as I'm honest with players, at least I can go to bed saying that I'm just an honest guy. So
awesome. Yeah, well, I'm excited. We have a good roster too this season. A lot of returners, of course, newcomers as well, as there is every year. But I think the main core of players, especially the guys who I wanted to keep, have been kept. And, of course, one, it's credit to the club. But, of course, the new coaching staff and the new league bringing in these guys. So now my first trivia question, and I only have one. I know Lucas has some sent by James Davis, so he's cheating. I can come up with them originally because I support this club since day one. But have a question for you guys, and whoever can answer it first wins. You guys should both know this. There is an FC Monmouth starlet who went overseas. He played in Gibraltar. Who is it?
Oh,
Chase Cavello?
Yes, that is it.
How'd you get that before me? That's
so. Yeah, I know he played at Monmouth for a season or two, but good guy, FC Monmouth legend, season 1 and 2 actually, one of our best players. So and I think he's from Spring Lake. I wrote an article about him for the local paper, so big article.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Lucas, now you can go with your unoriginal questions now that I've asked that one. But Evan's up 1-0.
Really
I'll
original.
score here.
They're pretty original. I thought of them all myself. I don't know what Chris is talking about. Anyway, who's the all-time FC Monmouth appearance leader?
Zach Pereira.
Zach Pereira is correct.
The OG captain.
What a guy.
Which season had the most former/current Monmouth University players on the roster?
It's a crazy question.
2000.
I'm gonna go season 2, whatever season 2 was.
Season 3, 2019.
It's actually 2021. There was, I'm just doing some counting here. Five players.
Well, that would be the NCAA max.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm glad you didn't say 6. Could have got in trouble.
Really good answer, Luke.
It was 5.
Off topic, guy who I loved, George back in the day, one of the
George,
yeah.
George was my favorite camp counselor.
One of my closest former players. I love it.
FC Monmouth legend, and that's when we had like the really yellow kits. I can't say I was a huge fan of him, but I mean, yeah, he was a good guy back in the day.
I still text with George on Instagram every once in a while.
George and I have a long personal history of. It took us a long time, but we're very, very close now. There were periods of time, he will admit to you, I've had to have some conversations, and I've kicked him out of training. But he's one of the greatest guys, and I'm happy to still have a close relationship with George.
Awesome.
Last question is a really hard one, but James, this is James's question. Who was James's camp counselor when he was at Monmouth camp?
James went to Monmouth camp.
He apparently went to Monmouth camp.
So he would have been, I'm going to say Blackburn.
Nope.
Joseph
Do you need a hint?
Schmid.
No, do you need a hint?
Yeah, we need.
It would have been that time frame.
The first initial's an E and the second initial's a K.
Oh, I got it.
Eric Klanowski.
What'd you say?
Eric Klanowski?
Yep.
That's all. That's good.
I thought James was older.
No, James, dude, James. First of all, well, can we all mention how much James does? Like this guy doesn't sleep, man. Like I keep constantly trying to tell him, like, hey, like you also need to like take some time and like think about who you are as a human being, not just a workaholic. But we can't say enough for all the work James has done. I mean, Evan and I, obviously, this is our first season, and there'll be a little bit of a learning curve for us for sure. But James has been like instrumental in not just like roster development, but just all sorts of in all sorts of ways as we've kind of transitioned to this position. So, James, we can't thank you enough, man. We're in touch with James 3, 4, 5 times a day, and happens since Evan and I decided to hop on board and do this. So thanks for everything that you do for the club, man.
Yeah, we echo that. And both Lucas and I mean, he's been a huge help to the both of us, both in high school. I mean, always, giving opportunities to young kids in the community, young high schoolers who love soccer. And now, I mean, I'm in college. Lucas about to head to college. We'll do the big reveal, I guess, next podcast. Maybe will be around the time Lucas will be committed.
Ideally.
Are we getting close, Lucas? Are you starting to really narrow it down?
We're getting it's between Monmouth and Tampa, I'll say that.
All right. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's exciting. That's super exciting.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And also, I just wanted to point out, Eric Klanowski was one of my original interviewees back in the day in 2020. And great guy, talked about, I think it was Toronto FC and everything he was doing. But he's stayed, in touch with the sports court. Great dude. And, yeah, I knew that question. I really wish I could have answered, but it wasn't mine to answer. I was the MC. Anyways, though, I digress. Hugh and Evan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And with that being said, everybody, we thank you for listening to the FC Monmouth Podcast, the first episode with Hugh and Evan. I'm sure you guys will be back throughout the season. Maybe we're going to do a mid-season checkup, see how we're doing, and then, of course, the end of the season review. So a lot in store. We're also going to be talking to people from the women's side as well, the WPSL, the League for Clubs. So make sure to stay in tune with all of that and follow us on social media at We Are Monmouth. Although if you're listening, I believe you already are following, especially at this point now. But thank you, everybody, for watching. And Lucas, keep up the good work. We look forward to your college decision next episode. Make sure to subscribe. We will see you guys next time.